Well, welcome to IMC Live, everybody. Like Alan said, this is their interactive webinar series hosted by the Industrial Marketing Collective. And we are here to help you connect with your peers, sharpen your skills, drive results in your work, all of the above. I'm Peyton Warren, Marketing Director at Gorilla 76, the industrial marketing agency, and I am one of your IMC Live hosts today. And I am oh so excited to talk shop with the industrial marketers in this Zoom room today. In fact, I love talking shop so much that this is why it's just an absolute joy to be one of the organizers of the Industrial Marketing Summit. Have you guys heard of that yet? It's an in-person marketing conference specifically for folks wearing the marketing hat, i.e. hats, for manufacturers. And it includes more than a dozen sessions, 3 in-depth workshops, and a community that will make you feel seen like no other. And I would love for you guys to come join us. The speakers that are coming are all going to be sharing proven marketing playbooks, and you're going to walk away with tactics, strategies, and relationships that will help you succeed long into the new year. So come and join us for 3 full days of Talk and Shop in Austin, Texas. It's going to be March 3rd through 5th in Austin, and you can learn more about the event, see more of the session details, and get your tickets at industrialmarketingsummit.com. Okay, let's jump back into the topic of today. We had a request from a community member last quarter asking us to dive into product marketing again. And we are planning to have a few product marketing conversations over the next couple of months. But I recently got to meet Kelly Battaglini. Did I pronounce it right, Kelly? I'm always, that's
The
like my
G
big,
is silent, but I take anything. It's fine.
okay, the G silent. What,
Battaglini.
that's tough.
I know. And my maiden last name had an added H, so it's like just a lot.
Well, when I met Kelly, I was super excited to pull her in and have her share some of her experience with this group. So, Kelly has spent more than 13 years in product marketing in-house at Phoenix Contact. If you don't know who they are, they're a global leader in industrial automation and electrical connection technology. One of their competitors would be like Rockwell. So now I know a lot of our listeners work for much smaller companies than what Phoenix Contact would be, but definitely tune in and ask your questions because these are timeless lessons I think that can be applied to operations of any size. So yeah, and the chat's always open for questions. So Kelly, hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing so well. Thank you so much for joining us today. I think we should go ahead and start the conversation with some greater context. Um, you spent, like I said, 13 years at Phoenix Contact. But for folks newer to like product marketing, how would you describe what that is, and what your day to day, like what was your job like there at Phoenix?
Absolutely. So I think almost everyone, if not everyone here, is B2B marketing. So we have to remember I live in Hershey, Pennsylvania. So I'm not marketing the Reese's peanut butter cup that people are buying because of emotion or desire, or just want. Um, Most of us are marketing complex products that we have to talk to a stakeholder about and make sure that we're really driving value. It has to return ROI. And I think it's really important to keep your audience in mind with B2B marketing, nailing down your persona, making sure you know who you're talking to, because a lot of it is storytelling. A lot of it is figuring out how to take that complex thing, whether it's cybersecurity or machine safety, and making it relevant to that person and understandable without losing credibility.
Yeah, storytelling for sure. And I feel like that's one thing where like so many times I just want to give every like marketer every time we get together like a little bit of like a confidence boost. Like you are already know how to do a lot of these things, but I think we get like tripped up by like the terms like product marketing, like am I a product marketer? And it really does come down to just like putting together relevant content for a relevant audience and telling the story about why it matters and how it's going to help you, which is everything that that we all do in marketing. So, uh, curious to know a little bit more about like what, because like Phoenix is huge, right? And so can you just tell a little bit more about like how the company was structured and like I guess what you were focused on and who you worked with on a normal basis?
Absolutely. So Phoenix Contact in the US not only does the marketing and has a subsidiary where we sell, we also design and manufacture from the US. So the team is a little more complex than probably at some of the smaller companies, but we were into different product pillars based on the different technologies. So I was within the automation pillar. And so within that, you would have people that were responsible for the straight product management. And that meant whether they were designing a new product, they were making sure that it got tested properly, they followed all the milestone steps. And again, they're globally focused. So that product wouldn't just be sold in the United States, it would need to get standards for Europe, Asia, and other countries as well. And that's also like iterations of the different products. And then the other half of the business was the product marketing management. So that was targeted nationally, selling in the US with our different product lines. So you had different product specialists who were responsible for key target product lines. So on my side of the house, that would be like our controllers, the PLC Next controller, IO, safety, HMIs and IPCs, relays, safety relays, really the full automation portfolio. So their day-to-day looked like top level tech support and making sure inventory is right and talking with customers, troubleshooting with salespeople. They wore a lot of hats. And so they were very busy and they were all really technical engineers. So a lot of the time the marketing fell to the bottom of the list, one, because they didn't have the time, and two, because they didn't like it. You know, it wasn't really something they were interested in. They'd rather dive into code than they'd want to dive into a campaign. So that's where my role, and there were a couple other people within the department that had a similar role, came in. So we would help them with high level campaigns. We'd put the overall automation initiatives in place and then take those smaller campaigns and roll them up into that larger overarching campaign. That was usually multi-year campaign. I worked with the global team a lot on global campaigns and translating that information into stuff that can be digested here in the US, making sure we called it Jinglish. So a lot of the German got translated, and for some reason they used a UK translating firm. So we got a lot of very interesting things back that we needed to change. And also just adding the standards and protocols that are used here in the US versus in Europe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was, I'm sure, a lot to a lot of our maybe smaller company marketers who think, wow, such a massive program like that, how can I take that and funnel it into my smaller operation? So we have a question in the chat related to that as well, I believe. But before we dive into that one specifically, just in general, what are the things that you think smaller marketing programs can take away or borrow from a larger organization like that?
Absolutely. I think everything kind of pairs down to your value proposition. What I would say is no matter what your product is, one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is to not try to talk about all of it, right? It's not the bullet points of it meets this temp spec or it meets this whatever. Find the pain point. What's the customer's pain point? Is it that they need to get data to the cloud and they have absolutely no idea how to do it, but their logistics person says they have to? Is it that there's some new cybersecurity standard that they have no idea how to meet, but you can hire a ghostwriter to write a couple articles about it and you look like you've just solved their problem? So I think it's just really getting that value proposition down and using it over and over and over and over and over again. Use it in your videos, use it in your brochures, use it on podcasts, and it just becomes ingrained that it's everybody then knows how to do the elevator pitch because you've said it so many times, it's impossible not to.
I think that a lot of times in marketing, we think that we are like repeating ourselves too often. And it's really important to remember that you've got to see something at least 7 times before it's really memorable in the first place. And I mean, just looking at a paid social campaign, for example. So if you were going to launch that and you have your value proposition in the ad and that gets sent out, I mean, depending on the budget that you have behind that, someone might only see that 7 times a month. or less. And so, yeah, I just want to like double down into that. Like if you feel like you're repeating yourself too much, you're probably not. I'd say you're almost definitely not, because there's just such a large audience that you're trying to reach, and they're probably not paying attention to you as much as you wish. As
Yeah,
much as you
I
wish
think
they would.
it's big to get out of your own head, right? Because you're hearing it over and over and over again doesn't mean it's hitting them that many times.
Mhm.
Because they're not all going to interact with the same pieces of content. So you do want to get it to them. And you can also have multiple personas that have different value propositions, but make sure when you're talking to that audience or trying to reach that audience, you're using the right value proposition.
Yeah, fall flat otherwise, that's for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, Joel dropped in the chat, when you're sick of saying it about the time that they start to hear it. And I think that's true for internal as well. If you're trying to get all of your sales reps, and we'll talk more about like just how you interacted with sales and distributors too, in this conversation. But a big part of product marketing is making sure folks are talking about the product in the right way. And that goes for internal and also like external, like perceptions and like what you're taking away from the product too.
Absolutely.
We had an early question in the chat that might be good to go ahead and bring into the conversation. Julie, do you want to ask it?
Sure, thank you. We are an engineering and design firm, so we design and build custom manufacturing equipment. So we've been very project-based for the last couple of decades. Everything is sort of a new invention, and we're launching a new product. Or we've actually been in the process of launching a new product for quite a while, and we have a new and improved version that's sort of being debuted. And I'm just curious, when you go from essentially marketing a service or a project-based product to an actual product, what parts of your marketing strategy need to change and what can look the same?
So we did have a solutions part of our business too. And I think when you're doing that solution and custom build, that subject matter expertise is huge, right? So you want to make sure that your company looks like you have the latest and greatest people that can solve their problems on a custom basis. It holds true too with the product. So you just want to translate that over of don't worry too much about the specs. Like I said, people get really consumed in but it can go to this temperature degree, or it can be vibrated to this point. That's great. And they probably need that, but that's not going to get them excited to learn about the product. So the product was made for a reason, right? Somebody designed that. And what you need to get out of their brains, and part of my job was working with that technical person and pulling out of them, why was this designed to begin with? Where's our plus ones, right? Where do we bring more value, and where are we negative one? Like, where should I steer away from? And then that's where you really can find your target audience and start talking about what it is you bring to the table that's so great that opens the door for however you go to market. If you have salespeople or distributors, or if you're doing it online, that gets them to say, they understand that I have a problem and this thing seems to answer that question for me. And honestly, going to not custom is maybe better too, to have another product, because now you're faster, right? You have something that's ready for them. They don't have to design it and go through that whole process. So talk about that, whether the product's a baseline they can build onto to make it more custom, or it's standard off the shelf. Explain why that time savings, is so great for them. Those are the kinds of things they care about before they get to, all right, is this going to fit in my server room or wherever it needs to go?
Yeah, I had a client that worked in like the, I guess I'll say component space. And one of the things that was really important for them is folks obviously wanted custom components to like be built into these new, lighter electronic technologies. But if you wanted something reliable, that off-the-shelf component was so much more trusted than something that was custom or experimental. So like, yeah, I guess I just think it's really interesting, like thinking about why do folks like this off-the-shelf product? Is it because of the speed, or is it because this has been tried and tested, and it's been around for 25 years. And sure, it might not be the lightest component that exists nowadays, you know, looking at like things like electronic vehicles or whatever. But you know, you can count on it. And so folks were really, really attracted to that reliability, especially in like the US market versus the European or Asian market, where I think they're like the appetite for custom and pushing the needle a little bit further in experimentation is, I guess there's just better appetite for that there in this situation. But
well, Karen gave us the perfect segue to our next topic in the chat, where she says that she left a huge global company to be a part of a smaller organization where she's got to do a lot with a little, but that you can still do a lot. Karen, do you want to add to that? Because we were just about ready to talk about the I can't do that myth. And I feel like you might have the perfect viewpoint for this.
I've been lucky in my career working different places. I've had great big budgets, and then I worked for nonprofits that had no budget. So there's always a way to figure out how to do a project with no budget. So you can, I think that's what's helpful about learning what other people are doing, because you can take even a piece of what they've done. You might not be able to do the video and the podcast and all that, but you can do a sell sheet that has all the key components that you need, and you can make it yourself with an application that you have, or, you know, a template or whatever, and you don't have to use Designer if you can. So it's just figuring out how to do those things. And it's all about messaging too.
I would agree with that. Even at a big company, I can tell you we've had bad years where all of a sudden we're going into Q3 and they're like, guess what? No more money for the rest of the year. And you're like, oh, that's great. I have 4 trade shows left. We have 2 product launches and I have $0. What do I do now? You know, and so you have to pivot. And a lot of the things that you see coming out of big companies, I don't know if you had the same thing, Karen, but they're not always professionally made. Like, yes, we had a videographer, but half of the videos that we put out there, we were in somebody's old office that we've turned into, we got like a butcher block table and we recorded, like some of it was recorded on a GoPro, and we were doing our own editing. We made our own stuff. Like it didn't always go through a big corporate communication. And like the ghostwriters I was talking about, I actually figured out that it's cheaper. I mean, you can get a whole article written that you can splice up for $75. I mean, you don't need a big budget to hire somebody that has a good voice for you. And it just makes you so much faster to market them when you want to talk about your value proposition and all these trends. You just have to get a little creative when it's free.
Yeah. So talking about getting creative, when it comes to dealing with, you know, your internal team members, like perhaps, you know, your sales manager, whoever it may be, how do you feel like marketers can kind of build their own power and get a little bit more say in organizations than maybe they currently have?
It's a great question. So I think there's a couple different tactics. One that I think my former boss is on here, Ira Sharp, came up with that I think works really well. Hi, Ira. Is that get it into their bonus plan. The fastest way to get them to do what you would like them to focus on is working in the beginning of the year with the sales director and saying, here are the objectives that we need your team to focus on. Here's what they need to accomplish to get this amount of money. Here's what they need to accomplish to get this amount of money. And here's what they need to accomplish to get this amount of money. They'll do it when you start implementing those things. And then you have to, as a marketing team, enable that, right? You can't just give them the target and then not give them the tools. So it helps you be aligned, because what they're trying to do is the same thing that you're trying to do. You're not going 10 different directions. So that was a big shift for us, of having those internal conversations, and group buy-in, I think, is important too. It's not dictating you're going to do this. It's, hey, this is what we're focused on and this is why. What do you think of that? Do you think the team should do this? And then coming up with that plan as a group. I think that always helps. I also think you have to figure out what makes your team tick, right? So we had multiple programs that we thought, oh, for sure, the salespeople are going to love this. It's going to take 2 minutes of their time. We're going to have them send in customer applications so that we can then spread them across the other salespeople. And it's going to take them a couple minutes to fill out, and we'll give them $100. And if we can use it as a case study, we'll give them $250. It was crickets. We were like, do these people not want money? I don't understand what's happening. It wasn't that. It was that in their day of 10,000 things to do, it wasn't on the short list, and they had too much stuff to do to even think about doing it. So then we kind of had to pivot and say, what does make them tick? And we realized, at least at Phoenix, that it's visibility to higher up management and straight competition. They want to be better than the guy next to them, and they want to be better as a region. The regional manager wants to be better than the other regions. So if you start a competition that's internal, you send emails out about it every week of standings, and you're having them go against each other, it drives them because they want to be better. They're salespeople. That's how they thrive. You know, their mentality is built on transactions and getting ahead. So those things always worked for us because they had fun with it when they got to see and kind of, say things, oh, well, our region's so far ahead of you. And also, if you put the CEO on it, doesn't matter how big or small your company is, and the sales leaders, they love it because then everyone's seeing what they're accomplishing. You can have your sales leaders internally, like at quarterly business updates, or however your company or president might speak about things, have them talk about it too on that. So it's visible to everyone that maybe wasn't hit in the emails. That has always been something that was successful for us.
Yeah, it's really almost using the kind of marketing psychology tactics that you would generally have on the consumer on your internal team,
Yes.
Authority bias, all the same stuff goes there. But do you have any tips specifically when you're trying to get manufacturing representatives to help with a case study and they might not be as willing as you would hope?
So a lot of what we did was we would get the baseline from them and we would write it. So we would, and now in the day of AI, you'd have to do multiple iterations and put it into your own tone. But if we could get the technical information from them, we tried to make it as easy as possible, right? Like, we don't want to spend our salespeople's time writing stuff. We were big, so obviously we had business development managers and some other people that could take on that task. But as marketers, we tried on the back end to fill up as much of that space for them as we could, fill in between the lines. And we'd work with other teams. I had a counterpart in power reliability. She and I would look at stuff and say, okay, here are all the different areas of complete line that we're hitting with this customer's journey. Let's make sure we have all the right questions answered. Let's go to them one time with what we need to find out and fill this out, and then we can write the entire article. So it was collaborating, a lot of it.
And credit to Jennifer Ray for that question. Jennifer, do you have any follow-ups you want to come on and ask? Okay, maybe we'll get back to her. So what's an example of a time where you turned an internal skeptic into a believer in what you're trying to do?
So we've had a couple different campaigns. One is pretty old that we did a while back. And that was the IPC Olympics. It was an Olympic year. It was the people that said, we've tried to get sales to help us. We've done this application awareness. We've tried to get them just on phone calls. We've tried. They're not going to do anything. They're not going to participate in these kind of internal campaigns, if you say. So the IPC Olympics was, each region was named a different country, and they were scaled each week on what level, if you're gold, bronze, silver, or you're not placing at all. And they killed it. I mean, they worked really hard to accomplish the goals of the campaign because of what I said earlier, that they wanted that recognition. They didn't want, and especially at the regional manager level or the regional directors, they don't want their regions to look like they're not participating because it's so visible. It just keeps pushing and pushing and pushing each group. So if you have a target product line that you're looking at, or a new product launch, or even what Julie was saying earlier about having a product that has a new iteration of it, but you really want them to focus on that new value, try doing some sort of competition or whatever it is that your sales team makes them tick.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really important. And like this has come up a little bit in the chat too, of just like it ultimately, like I think one of the luxuries that you have, Kelly, is that you worked at this company for 13 years and like you had some really, really stellar relationships there. And you knew who to go to. You knew how to like get folks um, motivated. You knew what made your sales team tick. But like if you don't know that answer and you're listening to this right now, think about how you can start to figure that out. And a lot of it comes down to building those relationships and doing a little bit of that back scratching and truly just asking your sales team or your reps in any way, like, what could I do to help you? Like, what are you working on? What's important to you? And thinking about ways that you can just start to collaborate because it just gets that back and forth conversation going, so that you can, get more folks on your side. It's not. I really don't think this is manipulation. It's just being effective, and yeah. So just it's worth it to walk the halls or go stop by that sales rep's desk and just chat or call to say like, oh hey, we just tried this new message. How'd it go when you delivered that? What'd they say? Like get like their take on if like, so it's not just like top down, you're pushing it out and you're saying just recite these talking points, nothing else. Like take you want it to be reciprocal. Like you want to learn from them just as much as you want to help coach them to market your product or solution better.
Mm-hmm.
You nailed something there, Peyton. I think that's so important. And that's, we can think we have the greatest ideas in the world in the back office. It doesn't matter how big or how small your office is. We all think we've got these genius plans that we're going to put in place. But if the salespeople can't use them, they're incredibly useless and you just wasted time. So whether you're big or small, you probably have a CRM or somewhere you can look. Any product launch that we had digit codes on our products. I would look in and see who the best and the worst were, and both are valuable to know, right? Why is it going so well for the greatest? And what are the pain points and struggles at the bottom? We know that some of our salespeople were never going to be the ones selling a full solution. It just wasn't in their wheelhouse. They were fantastic at other parts. But at things that were less complex, it's always good to know, what is it that you don't have to make you successful? And how can we bring that to you? And having that conversation gives you so much credibility with them because they realize you're not just dictating to them. You actually want to make it successful and need to know from them how and why. And I've learned some really enlightening things of big value propositions that I had for products that then my salespeople were like, that has caused a complete nightmare for me. Like, Kelly, stop saying that it's so open, you can do anything, because now my customers have these wild, crazy ideas, and I can't keep up with these 17 different platforms and different code and this and that to try to troubleshoot it. And I went, oh, okay, valid point. We need to make sure that we're not going so far out of the box that we're causing problems for the field.
Mm-hmm. Before we move on to our next topic, I want to get Carrie on here because she had a very specific situation I think is really related to what we've been talking about here. Carrie, would you want to come on and talk about it?
Sure, yeah. I work with a very small number of engineers who are well known in our field by our customers, and they're just very cautious about what we put out in marketing, and they are often only thinking like engineers, whereas a lot of our products we need to get buy-in from an owner or a procurement person or someone who's not an engineer. And since I'm kind of the only marketing person, I can record them talking about these products, I can get transcripts, I can use AI to generate tons of content that's pretty accurate, but I need them to approve it. And I just don't have a way to like get their time, right? Like they want to have kind of be that final approver of all messaging, but they're not product marketers either. So they don't understand the kind of concept of like, all right, well, we have a deck, about this product. It's got a ton of information about reasons to believe, who the, buying unit is, all of these things that we had in like the bigger companies I've worked at. We don't have any formal documentation of these things. So like, I saw the comment of hiding in the car. What are you all doing? How are you doing that? Is it about like convincing subject matter experts that the most important thing we can do is get them to agree on messaging and like formalize it, and then they can back off? Like, change management with this, I feel like, is really hard when they want to approve every little ad that we put out. I'm like, well, we'll never scale, we'll never win the internet because it takes 6 weeks to get an email done.
Yeah, I hear you so loud and clear.
Okay, good. I don't
so
want to feel
loud
alone.
and clear. I couldn't agree with you more. So I've run down this path many times. I've gone from when I first went to Phoenix, we had just reorged, and all the people I was working with were like field engineers. So like super techie. Like the guy wouldn't even approve for me to buy pencils for a trade show with the logo on it. They're like, I don't know, like wouldn't do it, like just freed, like froze. I've also had this scenario where you've got product management, product marketing, sales guy specialist, BDM, and everybody wants to approve it. And you get on a hamster wheel. And it's like, this guy undid that guy's, this guy redid this person's, this woman wants to change that, and you can't get anything done. So I kind of put a firm line that what I would allow them to approve is like the top 3 to 5 biggest things for the product that we have to hit. Okay, this is it. Okay, this is the short version, this is the long version. And then anything that hit into those bullet points and messaging, I took the creative freedom and just said, to scale, you guys are busy, I'm busy. Let's all agree. These are the 2 markets. Okay, currently we're only talking to the SCADA engineer, but we wanted to be talking to the IT engineer. Here's what this person cares about, because we still want to try to talk to them to get in the door. Here's what this person values and what we need to do to get there. Here are the value propositions for each of them. Does everybody agree? No, we want to change this word. We want to change that word. Get them in a room at one time, on a call at one time. And then everyone agrees, and then send it in an email. Hey guys, just to reconfirm, this is what we agreed on. I'm going to run with the creative of this. I'll make sure to keep the brand standards, and then you move on, right? Because you can't just keep going back. And as engineers, I love them to death, but it's never going to be done. A word can always be tweaked. Don't let great get in the way of good. You just, you got to just kind of get them on your, like in the same mindset. And then I think they become relieved once they realize that they can relinquish some control, because you have a job for a reason. Yeah. You have the power to figure out how to do the creatives. And when they see that happening and see that you are continually going back to those same value propositions they approved, they're not going to stress about it.
Yeah. Thank you. I think it helps too to just feel like I'm not alone in this challenge.
No. Oh no, girl. I'm telling you, the meeting with the multiple too many chiefs was like 3 months ago. Like this isn't something that just happened and there's a magic wand. Everyone has an opinion. We also got to the point where I would just say, guys, I don't think we're going to get anywhere. You need to identify to me who is the #1 technical stakeholder here and who's the marketing stakeholder. They need to get together and get the prime messages, and then we'll bring that back to the group. And then the group at large can approve it, because there can't be 12 people making plans, because you're all seeing little different pieces of things, especially on a global perspective versus a national one. So that also helped.
Yeah.
And then decide who the expert is.
Yes. And to one of the comments in the chat, I also run into, it is a family business. So the owner operators are like, well,
very attached.
Actually, we should say that, very attached. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, you guys need to align before I start doing anything, because otherwise I'm doing things 16 times. So I think there's some of that too, of like the technical expert, but you have the brand owner whose family has run the company forever. And they've never had to have that kind of discipline, because they're used to like sales, one-on-one sales, and like, I'm just going to have a conversation, and I'm just like, the internet doesn't care about that. The internet needs content. So
I think like the thing that keeps coming to mind for me is like, this is why, like you mentioned in your original comment, Carrie, it's like, you don't have some of those like just value props like formulated, like just like that foundational positioning hasn't been like set. And I think this happens whether it's like a creative, like graphic, like if you don't have brand guidelines, well, like what are the rules that you're following? Like you need to have like leadership tell you, yeah, we like the color red. We're going to use the color red. And because otherwise, if you just pull the color red in and they're like, I hate red, they're going to decline everything, you know? So it's like, well, that's why I feel like so often marketers struggle to just get those initial like foundational pieces in place. And like every client that we start with at Gorilla, it's like we have to align on that, because otherwise, what are you paying us for? To just like cause a bunch of like stress back and forth of like, oh, well, we don't like that. We like, that's not, it doesn't feel like us. Well, let's align on what like does feel like you, like the look, the feel, the messaging, so that you can empower an internal marketer or a third party agency like to do the work for you. Because like if you're trying to scale, someone's got to do it.
Yep.
It's got to happen fast too.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
great question, Carrie. We're getting already close to our scheduled ending time, so we're gonna have to do this last bit lightning round style. Kelly, channels and distributor marketing. How do you work with co-op programs and incentivize other salespeople to sell your stuff?
Okay, good question. So at a big company, we obviously have co-op dollars. So that's money that we give to the distributors based on their prior year sales, that scales year to year, and they can use it for what they want. So are they an online distributor and they're going to do programmatic ads with it? Is it somewhere up in Maine and they're going to do a lobster fishing trip with their top 10 customers and everything they give away is going to be Phoenix Contact branded? It can be anywhere in between that they use their money for. But as we talked about the other day, and to keep this kind of brief, I think one of the big things that we always forget about is that our relationship with our distributor isn't one way. So don't just wait for them to call you. Don't wait for them to need something from you. The easier that you make their lives and you make their salespeople's lives, the better it's going to be. So even at a small organization, I'm sure you don't have a distribution group like we do, right? But you can go to your distributor's website and see how many letters and what pictures they need to use in order to get stuff up and running, and provide it to them that way so that it's really easy to transact. Make a shared folder where you put all of your assets, so they know anytime you have a new product or they need a new value proposition or maybe a new graphic, that you'll always have it in the same spot and that you'll delete the stuff that's old, so that they just have a one link to go and find everything. I think, remember, they're people. So the easier you make their lives, the more likely they are to want to work with you.
How, just piling on here, how did you determine like how much co-op dollars that each individual distributor got?
So it would depend on the distributor's sale, prior year sales. So it was a formula based on how much business they brought into the company. So those that did more business got more. And then also we had a special program in automation because automation sales are a little more complex. So we, at our automation distributors, had an actual person sitting there that was half paid by Phoenix Contact to be a Phoenix Contact rep within those organizations. So we paid half the salary and the distributor paid half the salary, but they only focused on Phoenix Contact applications and automation.
Perfect. All right. Next round of the lightning. Product launches. What do you need for a full product launch? What is the bare minimum?
So this is one of my favorite questions because I love my engineer friends. If you're on here, I love you guys, but their favorite thing is to check the box. This list says I need a brochure, check. Website content, Germany did that, great. And a folder, check. Okay, done, and I'm gonna walk away. If it's gonna be a product launch, make sure you have a lot of collateral that you can keep using over the months. You wanna keep hitting people, but you need to make it on the front end. So launch the product with your brochure and all that stuff, but make sure you have digital ads. Make sure you have some sort of case studies. Go talk to influencers, get on podcasts. My favorite thing that I always told my guys is don't make a podcast be on somebody else's. They always need to fill spots. So I know that first they might come and say, we're going to charge you X amount of dollars, but eventually they need to get somebody on to talk to them. So keep going, even if your budget's small, of getting in front of people. But it's really having that full story ready with your value propositions, with a bunch of different content that you can hit people on different channels.
Yeah, I think that's super, super smart. And speaking of podcasts, we are going into a little bit of a lightning round, but Kelly's going to join us on the manufacturing marketer. And so in a couple weeks, we'll release another conversation that we're going to have with Kelly there. So Brendan and Nihal will dive deeper into some of these things too. Awesome. Should we wrap up? I mean, I just feel like there's so much here and I just want to keep talking, but maybe we should focus on just like the key takeaways at this point. You know, what do you think, Kelly, what do you think is like the one thing that the folks on this call could do today, tomorrow, to maybe improve their relationship with sales and therefore improve their product marketing effectively?
One, be responsive. So I saw a lot, your reputation will precede you in the field. So they all talk, they all have their own chats, they all have their own Teams chats. And if you're the one that's not writing back to emails, messages, especially with high-tech products, if there's a problem with a customer and you're not just saying, simply write back and say, I don't have the answer this second, but I'm working on it, I'll get back to you, means so much because they can move on with their day, knowing that in the back end, something's happening. So make sure that you're listening to them. And also, like I said, especially with the marketing side of it, that you're asking their opinion and then following up. Did it work? Because they might have ideas that don't work too. And you have to make that known. Hey, we just want to try something new. It's totally fine if it fails, but we just want to learn. What do you think we could have? What do you see your customers having on their desk from our competitors? You know what? Just asking them those things, you learn a lot and they then feel like they have a voice and they're important.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the show today, Kelly. If folks want to connect with you and learn more about product marketing and all of it, what's the best way to do that?
LinkedIn. So I would just, contact me on LinkedIn, send me a message. I'd love to talk to you guys more. If you have any specific questions, happy to help.
And it's Battag, silent G, Lini, Kelly. Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much for this conversation and everyone for joining us in the chat today. We do post these on YouTube just a few days after. I already had some folks ask questions about that. So the Gorilla 76 YouTube channel, this will be up soon. It will also be reposted on the Manufacturing Marketer podcast probably next week. But we're going to keep having more conversations like this. The next one that we have scheduled is November 20th. And we're going to put the quote skunk on the table in that one and say that, yes, you do have a positioning problem. And Alan and I are going to pull in everyone's favorite Brendan to talk with us more about that. He's going to talk to us about how to tell if you have positioning issues and where to start to fix them, move past the stage of denial and into acceptance so we can resolve here. Last but not least, I also mentioned today in the chat, but we have conversations like this ongoing all the time in the Industrial Marketing Collective. There's some discussion boards there. If you want to join that, you can request access at industrialmarketingcollective.com. You can also just ping me or Alan on LinkedIn. That's another good place to get us, and we'll get you into that group. So it's free. And that's all I got. So thanks for joining again, and we will see you guys in a couple weeks.